Welcome back to Be Easy Tech. I'm Brandon once again, and welcome to our very first System Showdown. Today, it's going to be AM4 versus AM5, and the purpose of this test is to see what happens if you spend roughly the same amount of money on an AM4 build as you do on an AM5 build. Now, this kind of System Showdown is something I'd like to be able to do a lot more of in the future. I'd like to see what happens if you try to save money by going with AM4 versus AM5, but right now, still not sponsored or anything, not making any money off these videos, so I gotta go with what I have, and I really can't just afford to be buying new expensive parts all the time. I can't. And to test these two systems, we're gonna be doing some gaming, we're gonna hit it with 3D Mark, and then we're gonna round it out with Cinebench. But before we get started, let's see how we arrive to roughly the same price and check out the specs of these two systems. Starting off with the motherboards, on the AM4 build we have our B550M Steel Legend, which I got for $110. And on the AM5 side, we have the MSI B650 Gaming Plus, which I got actually open box for about $135. And when it comes to the price of these two boards, there was already going to be a gap. This is micro ATX, while this is a full-size ATX board. ASRock being a cheaper brand than MSI obviously was going to play a factor. So all in all, this board probably retails brand new in box for I think 160, 170, something like that. So a bit of a difference, but when it comes to the features of this board, they could not be any more similar for what we're going to be using today. They are both PCIe Gen 4, they both have the same LAN speeds, and even though they might have different chipsets, we're really not going to be plugging anything in that's going to utilize the chipset today. When it comes to my hard drive, I'm going to stick to the top slot that shares the 16 lanes with your graphics card. So the difference in chipset should not play a factor at all. Now the CPUs I actually got for the exact same price. It's the 5700X3D and the 7600X. I got both for $180 each, brand new. And that's going to be a pretty interesting difference to see if the extra cores in the X3D technology gives us any advantage or gets on par with the 7600X, or if it gets beat flat out. But the clock speeds of these two are 1.2 gigahertz apart, and the X3D is much slower. So when it comes to certain games, that might be the deciding factor right there. And rounding out the System Showdown is our RAM. For the DDR4 RAM, we have 32 gigabytes of Trident Z Royal 4000 mega transfers, while our DDR5 RAM is also 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance 6000 mega transfers. Now, the DDR4 RAM actually has a much faster latency than this DDR5 RAM does, so again, I'm pretty interested to see how much of a factor that's going to play in this test. The graphics card is going to be consistent throughout the whole thing. It's going to be my 4070 Super once again. Now, like I said, my 4070 Super is the best that I have, and until this channel grows to a point where I'm able to get something better, you can expect to see the 4070 Super used in pretty much every test that we do that involves a graphics card on this channel for now. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pop it into the 5700X3D build first. We're going to do a little testing on that so I don't have to keep swapping back and forth. And then we'll put it into the 7600X build. And at the end, I will put up a table and we'll go over all the results. So while I swap out the GPU, go ahead and vote for which system you think is going to win down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Let's play some games. Alrighty, AM5 time. Let's see if it's worth the money. That baby, pop, pop, that baby, pop, that baby. Oh yeah. That is honestly like my favorite sound of all time. Sometimes I think about just leaving a whole rig as an open air test bench because it's just so much easier. Alright, good to go, good to go. Now always remember guys, O means no, but a landing strip means yes. I'll tell you what, this power supply company sure knows how to market to kids. I'm kidding. This is where like 50% of your frames are coming from, is that fan right there.
Unbelievable! That was amazing! We knew you had ability, but not that.
No. You saw nothing. It's time to look at some data. So if there's anything we've learned about these two systems from gaming is that AMD really knows what they're doing when they price these CPUs, because this was a pretty close match all across the board. So if we start out with Remnant 2, we see that's really the only case where the 5700X 3D and its 2 extra cores and 3D cache had the advantage. And we actually had to go down to 1080p for it to do that, because while in 1440, as you can see, that was all about the GPU and it really made no difference whatsoever. But if we move over to Spider-Man, we see something pretty interesting that happened here. When we dropped it down to 1080p and started throwing more at the CPU than we were the GPU, both CPUs had some pretty bad bottlenecking issues, and it really speaks to what we mean by having an even matched system. And while this isn't going to be the case with every game, this is a very good example of why something like a 4070 Super is a little bit more than you actually need if you're going to be playing in 1080p. So if you're somebody who strictly plays in 1080p and you're looking at new GPUs, looking around the 4070 Super level, I would really suggest you drop that down a little bit, maybe to 4070, 4060 Ti, 7800 XT, something like that. And going with a slightly stronger CPU, I think you'll get better gaming performance if you do that. And while we didn't lose any FPS switching over to 1080p in Jedi Survivor, we still had some pretty bad bottlenecking going on. As you saw, the GPU should still plummeted down in 1080p for both CPUs. So again, don't waste your money on too strong of a GPU if you're playing in 1080p only. But once again, we see the 7600X one boat scenarios, and the 2 extra cores and the 3D cache just wasn't enough to overcome the 1.2 gigahertz difference in clock speed. But when we moved to 3D Mark and hit it with Time Spy, that's when the 5700X 3D really took over in overall performance, and it beat the 7600X by about 600 points. Doing the Steel Nomad, that was probably a little more of a waste of time because that really is more of a dedicated GPU kind of test. And as you can see, the results were exactly the same. I mean, that's margin of error as close as you can get. But when we hit it with Cinebench and clock speed was really playing a major factor, the 7600X dominated the 5700X 3D. I mean, the single core test was not even close. It was a good 1.5 times the score. But that was kind of expected. As we know, the X3D chips are really focused more on gaming, which is why they tend to have much lower clock speeds than the X chips do. Now, who won our competition overall? Well, if you look at all the results together, I really don't think either one. I really think it falls down to your usage case and what type of person you are. What I mean by what type of person you are you somebody like me who constantly likes to tinker with their parts, swap things out, upgrade frequently? Then you should absolutely go AM5 over AM4, and the answer is obvious, because AM4 is now a dead platform. There will be no new AM4 CPUs, and if there is, it's going to be some sort of rehash lower end CPU like a 5500X 3D, just to give budget people something with the name X3D on it. But it's not going to be as strong as the 5900X. So if in 5 to 10 years from now, AM4 becomes a little bit more on the weak side of things and you feel like you need to upgrade, well, you're stuck getting a whole new rig. So go AM5 now. But if you're someone who's on the opposite end of the spectrum and you really only like to build a machine every 5 to 10 years and run it into the ground and not touch it, then yeah, you could definitely go AM4, and you could even save a lot of money doing it like that, because let's be honest, this system is more flash than flare, really. I mean, you don't have to get a super flashy motherboard with RGB and everything. I mean, ASRock is one of the cheaper brands, but $110 for a micro ATX AM4 board is still pretty darn expensive. And the RAM, you know, I got pretty much the most fancy AM4 RAM that you can get with the Trident Z Royal, and it's 4000 megahertz. You would be perfectly fine with 3200. There's a good $40 savings right there on your RAM. So to recap, if you're somebody who likes to tinker and upgrade a lot, definitely go AM5 or a new Intel socket, because as we know, AM5 is going to be supported until at least 2029 at this point, maybe even further, we don't know yet. But if you're somebody who's opposite, do what you want, really. At the end of the day, you can go AM4. Don't let anybody shame you into not going AM4. It is still a great platform. I love this rig. But if you're looking at spending the same amount of money, definitely go AM5. I mean, as you saw, the 7600X with 2 less cores actually did really win most of our testing. And obviously, we just know AM5 being newer and more powerful, it is going to be viable for longer than AM4 is, obviously. So that one, I kind of feel like is really a no-brainer. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what kind of other testing you might want to see done with these 2 rigs. And make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I cannot stress how important it is that you do, because for every person that watches this video and doesn't subscribe, another puppy goes unadopted. And I'm sure you don't want that to happen. Do you? So hit that subscribe button down below, and definitely check out our free PC giveaway video. It's about halfway to our goal of 2,000 subscribers now. So again, another great reason for you to subscribe so we can hurry up and give this PC away, and hey, it might even be you. But other than that, again, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time.